All right, so we're doing this video again. After reviewing the video, I think I ended up focusing on the wrong things. Those actually are the effect of working on CSS too much for too long. You get too angry and then things go off. Now, with all the seriousness that it deserves, note taking is actually quite important to me. And it changed a lot of the work I do. And after seeing the video a number of times, I've noticed that although I do have that sarcastic tone that I often use on the videos when I comment about vulnerabilities and news all over cybersecurity, this topic deserves a different note. And I ended up focusing on the wrong thing. So with that being said, let's do a third take on this one. Now, here's the note. I'm going to show Obsidian, but truth be told, could be anything else. There are a number of features on it that are quite crucial, especially for red teaming and pen testing as well, depending on the scenario that you're working on. Obsidian has a few things that to me feel like traps. It is a lot. It has a great customizability level. You can customize a lot of things, but it's web-based, which ends up most of the time feeling like a grenade that you throw at yourself. It will likely blow up on your face a number of times, and it's quite resource hungry at times. Considering the two features, namely data view and templater, which I actually have a lot more plugins installed, but those two are the ones that make me stay for the time being. Truth be told, I'm also considering other alternatives, but for the current time, it fits my flow quite nicely. So let's do that. Let's see if this time I can actually make this look fair. Now, this is a vault that I use to set up some snippets, and I'm actually testing something that I'm going to talk about soon. In a web development, in a CSS scenario, for you to make things look like this, which is one of the issues that we have. See that move over there? That is one of the things that I mentioned on the other video that made me go crazy, and actually made me go crazy on the other video as well. If I take this off, okay, you're going to see this move. The reason why this moves is because the CSS doesn't follow a grid pattern. Generally, it's a 4 pixel grid pattern that makes your layout flow go neatly and actually, what's the word for it? Things will just fall into its place. It looks good. It's harmonious and expands by the right proportions, like the Fibonacci sequence. Although you can't use Fibonacci sequences in here because they're even numbers. They're odd numbers. So one of the things that made me spend some great time over the last few weeks was actually to make this into that. Okay. And so this is my testing vault. Now, I have a demo vault here. The structure I use is was created by someone called Nick Milo, and I'm going to link his videos on the description. He does an amazing job at creating methods of organization. And I'm basing this structure after him. So what you see here with the 00, the atlas, calendar, the notes, the efforts, and so on, it's his structure, not mine. Didn't come up with this, but it works really well. The idea is for you to have something that starts on the 0, or everything is emerging, things that you read about that you want to save snippets for. They're not concise. Okay, and eventually you create something out of that, akin to a paper, for example, your own thoughts about that. You expand that that knowledge of it, and eventually ends up in here in the notes. Then you create maps to basically make sure that you don't use this view. To me, this is usually the dashboard that I have. The plugins the plugin that makes me stand some of the things that make you go also crazy with this application is this over here. DataView is an amazing plugin actually, because it allows you to query files by tags and create tables on it, which saves you from the great ordeal of creating the maps yourself. You just need to create a tagging system, and it's not that difficult. So you can create a dashboard and small calendar. You can split your warefords and so on. You can also make things a bit dynamic. So if I take something off here and go back, okay, it updates. So you can have this perspective of your work, which is awesome. But our focus is not on that. It's actually on red teaming. Red teaming relies a lot on a number of elements. The vulnerabilities, something I called selectors. Inside the selectors, there are essentially two levels. There's something called entities and infrastructure. Entities are a bit more abstract because inside what we have is it might have information about a company, a person, an employee, a partnership, a leak, anything you can build to help you understand that company and how it operates. That eventually is going to be a fingerprint, okay, a fingerprint of the organization, or something that you can use to identify potential vectors in, because the goal of the red teaming is to compromise a company, right? Infrastructure is where most of the things are going to be on, and we have here a small example. I took this out of a project that I used, and I basically anonymized some of the information here so that I don't get in trouble. But however, the time is we have these things. This is a part of a querying system that we can also use so that those tables to show up. I'm going to show that as well. And we have the components, the IP address, the host information, so anything you take out. Now, I don't create entity elements for every single piece of infrastructure. Most of the tests we do are quite big. So I selected the few that are either interesting or they show potential, because inside the resources is where all the elements of enumeration are going to be on. Your logging. Red teaming and security assessments is all about making sure that you have a rich and enough you saved enough logging to make your case, and to actually make it so that the client trusts your work, which is sometimes a bit difficult. So all the notes of the enumeration eventually might end up there. Have two examples there. The images, any potential cracking, actually have valid data in there, so I'm not going to open those. Because this is a vault that I'm creating to share with part of my team, namely the part of the Atlas. This is currently versioned in sub-modules. So the main structure is versioned by itself, with the exception of Atlas. Atlas is a sub-module that I have versioned elsewhere outside of my infrastructure, and I'm planning to share that with my team. And so going back here on the calendar, here, so what ends up being happening is you're going to work on the enumeration, and then you're going to, as you look, for example, by group of hosts, this is a small testing example. In big infrastructures, in the infrastructure might be split by role or service, HTTP service, FTP, SSH, because those will group a bigger number of hosts. And so you're not going to have hosts, you're going to have a list of hosts. And it's easier to manage in note-taking time-wise. Another crucial aspect is the date. The creation date and the timestamp, pretty crucial. You need to make sure, you need to have that information to share with the blue team so that they can retrace the steps and find the balance to see if they can get the clues as early as possible. Now, as I was saying, it is crucial to take notes, and the timestamp is pretty important. So you're going to save information based on groups most of the time. There will be small cases where you can spend time looking at hosts individually. This might sound a bit strange because we're talking about security assessments, and the general expectation is actually for a company, most of the companies expect this way, is for any type of the assessment to look thoroughly after every single host. And that is not the case. Depending on how in the scope of the test and the type of test you're doing, the depth will change from one case to the other. So if you're doing a red teaming, the goal is not to test every single service at every single host. The idea is to compromise the company in such a way where to avoid telemetry and detection, to emulate a threat. On the security assessment, the goal is to have a better perspective, as deep as possible, over the entire environment. And so, depending on the conditions, these notes will change its depth, and it's to be expected. And it's one of the reasons why I adopted this structure and actually quite happy with it. One of the another elements of that I actually enjoy as well is the vulnerabilities, which I create after the templates as well. Okay, and we're going to see that as well. So when say you found a vulnerability, right? You're going to take note of that. You're going to take the screenshot. You're going to see if there's a public CV about it. Take the severity, take those details. You're going to make a note. It will automatically take this timestamp, take the timestamp and the date. It's going to be placed inside this folder here. And all the time, over the time, you're going to collect a number of these entities by host, by a group of hosts. It depends on the case that you're working on. And eventually comes a point where you're actually going to need to detail your activities. Say someone asked, have you done this or that? Have you tested for this? What was the output? And after a while, the test becomes so big that it's actually difficult to tell when have you executed this or that test and the potential outcomes of that. And in some cases, you might recall because it was a clear no and it didn't work. Other cases might be scenarios where there's a level of uncertainty. And in those cases, you need to be really precise in what you're saying so that the client doesn't think that you're selling snake fat. Another aspect that I quite that it to me is a good it is basically a good turnout of having something as flexible as Obsidian currently is, all with its own quirks, is this dashboard here. So the project details, the target, the description, the dates, contact details, because those are pretty crucial to have in hand, especially when we're talking about situations that at times something unfortunate might happen. The scope, which is probably one of the most important things, and then your log. Okay, you can clearly tell how many things you found over time, at which date. If you're talking about red teaming, you're going to expand this to a timestamp as well. The date, the hours, and the minutes are really important as well, because the telemetry that they're searching for will go by the second. So the closest you can get to the actual action, the more crucial things are. And then something that becomes really important, especially if you're working with a team, right? How many issues have you found and identified over since you last checked? Like severity in here, and this is another dynamic dashboard I have here with a query. So it takes everything, goes onto that folder that is tagged, right? In this case, it's going to be grouped by a key with the title and severity. Those are the fields going to be searched. And actually, JavaScript, although a bit volatile, here it actually shines really well. And especially this plugin is actually quite well crafted. I'm really impressed with this, and I'm not easily impressed. I may add that as well. So this is another case. It sounds a bit it might sound a bit too much, but actually is quite flexible, because you don't need to revisit every single file to know exactly what's going on with a particular assessment. Someone asks you, how's the test going? If we're talking about management, what they really want to know is, have you found anything? Is there anything critical that I should tell the client about? And those you can get right away with the dashboard here. So this is a clear lifesaver. Now I'm going to create an example here. And all the system is created by a series of templates that I'm going to show, but let's create a demo here. Like that. I start by creating a folder. Then I'm going to create a new node in there. I'm going to create demo as the name. And now I need to make sure that this is in the right format. Yeah. Otherwise it will fail like it did the first time. Project. Yeah, there's a template there. I'm going to show this template after this. So if I hit this, it's going to ask me for a tag. So let's go with demo as well. Just keep things simple. And boom. Okay. The entire structure was created for me and ready for use. Okay. This is like sliced bread. It's crucial. Okay. It's optimal. It's crazy. It's awesome. That's what you want. Okay. Something that allows you to be precise, but in a timely fashion. Okay. You don't need to be, to push 100 buttons. Most of that magic comes from this template here. Okay. This is the second plugin. I have an unhealthy amount of plugins installed. These two are the ones. Okay. The code that just ran was this. Okay. This one is part of the templater. It's the plugin number 2 that I use and I rely on. You can create commands. This is a bit of a stretch. You need to take this with a grain of salt. It actually executes commands on the system that you can define yourself from actions that you take on the editor. So don't take this lightly. It's a very good way of nuking your feet quite fast. Okay. We're talking about security assessments. Okay, some of the commands that you run, if you run it on your system, it's doomsday scenario. You don't want that to happen on your system. Okay. So make sure that you do that careful. This one here creates a series of folders, and then I create the files and I manipulate the tags based on the input that I just selected. Something pretty simple, but yet it creates a lot of value, right? All the things are taking consideration the path, and I try as much as possible to refer things by full path. especially in these projects here, because I don't version them, because NDA scenarios. This has a side effect. I'm yet to work on it. I'm going to show what that is. That space down top that I just deleted was just that, like that. I have other templates here. I have something called blocks. It was previously called entities. I'm currently migrating this. We have the up, which is a series of properties that I rely on a regular basis. This let's put this in source mode. Yeah, so this is a YAML. You can set these up and show, for example, this is a template for a person. So all the information that you be interested in collecting when you're profiling a company or an employee. And there will be, if you're unfamiliar with this side of pen testing, looking at specifically this template, it is as close to a stalking as you can imagine, because the more information you have, the more likely you are to find a flaw. So you need to find a delicate balance here, and it's not easy to find. That balance is not very difficult and not very easy to find. But you will have to dig a lot of information about individuals from the organization and the organization itself. So you need to be thorough. The more thorough as you can get, as weird as that might sound, it is part of the trade. Code block, for example, I think can actually show that one off as well. This is another one that you're going to end up using a lot on a daily basis. So code block, and then you can specify the language, and you go here. Let's go see, why not? And then you write something. Let's do something meaningful here. Okay, and then you put in read view, and then you have the shiny colors and all. Just a few keystrokes away. You end up focusing on the content itself, other than getting the structure right. So most of the structures end up being in templates. So those are the main plugins that I use and rely on a daily basis. It also has other things that I use a lot. I'm actually quite a fan of mind maps, and you can actually use these as well. Some scripting involved as well, and a crazy amount of plugins, which I'm not going to go on this video. I'm going to go on that depth and in a different scenario. So yeah, so to recap here, and I hope this video actually makes it sounds a bit better than the other one, and eventually might take the other one down, because a very crucial aspect of the security assessment is the note taking, and it's really important to have not just detailed notes, but actually structured and organized. They will likely help you out to map things within the chaos that goes on in your mind when you're doing a security assessment, trying to push everything at the same time. So I hope you enjoyed this one. And if you did, just leave a comment, maybe. Tell me what you think about it. Tell me what you use as well. And I'll see you on the next one.